Hey, this is Réal Andrews, and welcome back to Getting Real on your hometown station, 1220 KHTS AM. We're having a great time here, and I'm going to pass it over to my lovely Deanna Miller.
Yeah, so we are going to continue to talk about Are You Coachable? We've talked about a few things now. We've actually had some really great questions come through on Periscope. Some great ones. Keep them coming. We did have one I wanted to talk about just really quick before we move on to what we were going to talk about next in the coaching segment. But one question came through, how do you trust again? And I think that's a really good question because a lot of people, they invest money into, let's say, a fitness trainer, or they invest money into, like, they spend $500 on a day of motivational speakers and they get nothing out of it except for a bag of swag that does nothing for them. So how do you trust again when you've been burned so many times, when you've tried to take those opportunities, you found your gap and you're ready, but you've just had people suck your time and take your money?
And I want you to answer that, Alex, but I want to add another layer to that, Deanna, trust, because in far as trust, like, there's people out there talking about, maybe, getting married again, or maybe, doing another career, or, starting over again. And so how do they trust again when they've really been hurt or burned by somebody in their life or burned by a certain situation? Because there's many levels of trust.
This is how I coach people when it comes to trust. You first have to decide that life is going to be challenging. You're going to get hurt, especially if you're in the game of relationships. If you don't want relationships and you just want to be a hermit and hide out and buy yourself a cat or a dog and just live a simple life without being in relationships with real people, then you're never going to get hurt. But being in love with people and loving and giving your heart and sharing, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get taken advantage of. It comes with the territory. It's part of the game. It's like breeding pit bulls and expecting you're not going to get bit, or taming alligators and expect that you're not, living a dangerous life. You're going to get hurt. So it's part of the process. You just have to accept that at a certain point you're going to trust, and you're going to give your heart away, and you're going to bring your walls down, and you're going to give people the chance to let them in. And for those of you that continue to believe in people and believe in the greatness in each other, with a little bit of weariness, I mean, you have to guard yourself to some point, because you don't want to just go out there blindly trusting everybody. But I'm hoping that the more you're getting hurt, that you're learning some lessons and you're taking accountability for, hey, maybe it's because I jumped in too soon, and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I bring my wall all the way down to 0. Give people, let them earn it. So, bring your wall to 90 and have 20% trust. And then if they earned it, drop it down to 70, and now it's 30% trust, and then down to 60. So do it in increments. And I think as you're doing it as increments, you're going to learn something about them and yourself. But I hate to say it, but it's part of the game. Mm-hmm. You're going to get hurt, and it's a learning curve. And as you get better at it, you're going to start noticing that you're going to be trusting the right people more often, and you're going to surround yourself around people that's powerful and honorable, and you're going to have some great relationships. But it's work. It's an art form. You definitely have to keep practicing it. But if you give up too soon, you're missing out on some of the joys of creating some extraordinary relationships with people.
You said, and then I want to jump into the topic, Deanna, because you said something that was really powerful right there, because there is an accountability part of it, right? You said, maybe, and I've said this to my son before, my middle son is my mini-me, and I'm like, is it possible, Nathan, that since you keep getting the same reaction, that it's not everybody else anymore? That, we need to start taking some accountability in that trust process, and so that's good. So.
Yeah, my favorite saying is that I'll tell people, have you noticed in all of your broken relationships, there's a common denominator? Have you noticed that in all of the 12 broken relationships you've had in the last 20 years, you're always there? Maybe you're the common denominator. Maybe there's something that you need to work on within yourself to figure out how to master a relationship.
Or a process of getting in shape.
And that's a huge wake-up call. For us to look at ourselves it can be challenging for a lot of people, because we grew up not looking at ourselves. We grew up in the victim perspective and victim mentality to say, well, maybe it's her. Well, it's got to be them. But I think the power play is in looking at and go, well, wait a minute, maybe it's me. What do I need to work on? Who do I need to be? And what kind of things do I need kind of tighten up so that I'm making better choices and trusting people that earn that trust.
Absolutely. No, I think that goes back to, we were talking about kids before the break and how to manage their social media and how to build that trusting relationship. So I think it really starts when we're young. You know, I have a 9-year-old, you've got your 3 kids. We are so involved in our families, and I think we start to teach our kids really young to make excuses. So, you know, we wanted to talk a little bit about at what age does that shift start to happen? Because we've talked about this a bunch. We've had a lot of conversations about bullying and accountability and, you know, the things that kids endure. You know, you've got some great analogies. You've got some great stories. So, Réal, when we've talked about that young age, where can we start teaching our kids? At what age? What can we do to make sure that there isn't that shift in, you know, I didn't do it, but, you know, Jimmy did. And you were there, but you have no accountability for it. So what can we do to teach our kids to continue to be coachable, to continue to be trustworthy and trust without those walls having to constantly be broken down and built back up and broken down and built back up?
That's a great question, Deanna, and I'll share a couple things with you quick to answer it. You know, one is look at the video that I did for, you know, the commercial for this show. It was a very interesting thing. When I started out shooting that commercial, I started asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was asking kids anywhere from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I found a very interesting thing happen. I started to ask some 13, 14-year-old kids. The 4, 5, 6 would give you an answer like that. And all of a sudden, I had these 13, 14-year-old kids going, I don't know. They already had stopped dreaming at 13 and 14. Then I did another interesting thing. I took a group of adults in a 4:30 class, and I had an idea when we were warming up on the bike. I said, I bet you if I asked them what they wanted to be as a kid, not only would they remember, they were it. And sure enough, every single one of them knew. Then I went in the afternoon. So basically, what I found, you look at it like a baseball, Deanna. And basically, we all know what a baseball is. If you were to cut it in half, you see it's round with elastics, and it's round really tight. I learned this from a friend of mine. By about 5 years old, that ball is almost half round. So basically, to answer your question, we need to be inputting in right away, because at about 13 years old, it's 85% already round. And at about 18, they put the cover on the baseball. We shove them out into the world in college and go, there you go. And they just get beat up all day with the ball. So when they've got to us anywhere past 13, 18, as a coach, we've got to peel that layer back. We've got to unravel all that rubber bands to get back down to that 5-year-old. So, you know, it's a double-ended question. If we get them too late, we got to unpeel it. If we're starting with these young kids, get them while they're young and start speaking life into them, speaking positivity in them, telling them they're great. You know, you shared something with me the other day, and I did it with each one of my kids, and it was amazing. I said, you know what, I had a dream the other night. And I saw you as a great man. I saw you with a beautiful wife. I saw you successful. And I said, you did? What did my wife look like? What was I doing? It was awesome. You know, so I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because I have spent a lot of time now that I'm a solopreneur, entrepreneur person, and we've got our co-founders and things are going on and things are amazing. I've spent a lot of time at my son's school recently, being a room mom and like volunteering and PTA. And I think that it's so true that you really have to start young with instilling those values of consistently learning, because I meet a lot of adults in my training, what I do for social media with the company, with Stark Social. I meet a lot of adults who, regardless of how successful they are, they're just not ready to open up their minds to the possibility that they could learn a thing or two about something that they think they've already mastered. And I think that it's so important to continue to give that message to our kids. So one of the things that I saw recently in the news was a lot of different opinions about awards and trophies and medals, and how there were several kids who decided to, I forget what area it was in the Midwest somewhere. There were several kids last year at the end of the school year who felt that they didn't deserve the awards that they got, so they wanted to give them back because they felt there were other people. So when you think about that, what do you guys think as coaches when you get adults who aren't coachable yet? What do you think of as adults? How does that impact people that everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets an award, nobody's distinct, there's no first place, second place, third place, there's just everybody's first? What do you guys think about that?
Well, before I start on that, I want to share a little bit about the question you asked earlier about how to teach our kids to be coachable. For me, I want to speak about my own kids. My own kids are very coachable, and there's only one distinct reason why that is. And for me, it's because I've become coachable to someone else. They watched me growing up, having my own coaches and my own mentors, and then as they're coaching me, then I'm turning around and learning how to coach my kids by asking open-ended questions. My coach got good at asking me questions so that I can find my own solutions, find my own answers, and in return, I learned that and then turned to my kids and started asking them questions so that they can find their own answers and their own truth. And so what happens is from those little eyes, those little perspective looking up, they watch dad being coached and then dad coaching them. So they learned how to be coachable. Now my kids are in their early 20s and they're all coaching their friends. They're all like the go-to people where their friends come to them and ask for advice, but it didn't just happen. It just didn't happen overnight. It was a process that they learned. And so the point I want to make is if you want to teach something to your kids, you have to become it. You have to practice it in front of them so that they can see it. It's not good enough to just be spewing it and giving them advice when you're doing something that's totally opposite. It's contradictory.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I can say, firsthand because, you've heard me say they will become who you are. They're always watching you. But even in my own life, because, me and Alex have been working together. He's, my life coach. And so I'm actually going through what he's talking about right now. And I actually said to my oldest son the other day, I said, hey, what do you think of this whole life coach thing? And he says, I see a difference, Dad. I see a difference. And in my house, it's, it was like my wife's listening, so she's going to laugh. I'm always talking about, why do I come home and there's no dinner for me? You cook dinner for them, and I've been changing and trying and doing different things. And I came home and there was dinner for me, and I didn't even ask. And it's like, you see, and those are the things I see firsthand those changes. I see the difference. And my family now are asking, hey, isn't it a possibility, Dad? Have you considered this? But,
Hey, you're being the example, and I think if you really asked your kids, if I pulled them aside, I think that all your kids would say, he's an inspiration. And I think that because you're humble enough and willing to be coached, you're teaching them that it's okay to be coached. Mm-hmm. It's okay if we don't always have the right answers, and we're only going to self-coach ourselves to a certain point. At that point now, in the gap, you need someone else from the outside to be able to pull you in and give you that kind of mentoring.
And I don't want to leave Deanna's question hanging because that's a big one. I just, that bothers me to death. Like everybody needs to get an award. No, they don't.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, we've talked about it. So what do you tell these parents? How do we coach these parents to say, you're setting your kids up for failure, not for success? It's not real.
Yeah, I think when it comes to giving awards, I always tell, when I'm doing business coaching, I always tell the business owners, you want to acknowledge your employees, but have it be authentic. Don't reward somebody that doesn't have merit. Make them earn it. But when you do spot it, by all means acknowledge it and do it authentically. But don't just hand out spot awards. A lot of time there's the classic employer, and you can swap out employer with parent because they're almost one and the same. Where the employers will to try to motivate their team, they'll just hand out these gift cards like nobody's business. And then they're wondering why their employers at a certain point they just stop overproducing. And it's like, well, because they're waiting for you to keep handing out more gift cards. You've basically trained them to need something to be able to dig down deep and find that champion inside of them. They're only going to find that champion inside of them when you've acknowledged something that was authentic and something that was earned. Don't cheapen the acknowledgement or don't cheapen the award when they didn't really dig down deep and give it their 150%.
And as I'm hearing you say that, I can see the reverse. Like, I could see these kids that work really hard to get A grades, and then they're up there getting an award with the same kid who didn't do any of his homework or anything. So now you're going to, why should I even bother? You know, I can see the reverse effect of that coming.
Yeah,
What do you
it could demotivate you if you're sitting there, know that you gave it 150% and someone else gave it 80, and they're getting the same award that you said. Are you kidding me?
So let's get real right now with the parents. What do they need to hear right now to know that that's not okay? I mean, because part of getting real is you're going to hear stuff that's going to make you uncomfortable and you're not going to like. And I might, or Alex or Deanna might offend you right now, but just be open to the possibilities and stew on it. What do they need to hear right now?
Well, you need to hear that. Be open to the possibility that you have some enabling abilities. And because you love your kids so much and because you want them to win so bad, that you could be enabling them. And by enabling kids, you're not setting them up to win. What you're really doing is you're creating a little monster that now just needs to keep getting some kind of validation, and now is needy of your approval all the time.
I've seen some of those monsters. Have you, Deanna?
Yeah, no, I totally have. I have, and I've worked with them, and I worked with their parents. But I think the thing is, for me, when I started at that moment when I realized that my son got it, that his awards and his accolades and the things that he was receiving were not necessarily earned, was when he had received at 1 year in school, sort of like that honorary, you finished the school year, good job award. The next year, he got an award that was for reading comprehension, and he comes up to me, and we're standing there, and we've got his stepfathers there. We're so excited, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's not just an honorary award. I actually earned it." And there's all these kids that are around, they've got their honorary awards, and they're doing their happy dance. Their parents are like, "Good job, high five." The thing I think parents need to understand is you're setting your kids up for failure by not being honest with them about their shortcomings. I'm always honest with my son about my shortcomings. I had him come with me the first time we worked out together because I wanted him to see that I was recognizing the fact that I hadn't done enough to be healthy. And I wanted him to see that mom's not perfect. He's not perfect. Your kids aren't perfect. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you.
And that was awesome. And right off that, I've got some champions in the room. We're calling them the Real Hero. Yes, they definitely deserve a hand. You can track and follow them and support them at #RealHeroes. But I just want to introduce you to them quick. And guys, when I introduce you, I want you to say your goal, how much weight you want to lose, or what your vision is, and really quickly what your purpose is. I gave you that homework the other day, so here's your first test. You know why you're doing this. So first we got Andrew Delgado.
Hey. Andrew Delgado. And I'm about 350 pounds right now. And I took this challenge on because I heard you talking about it earlier, that it's just before things get, worse or bad. They're already at that, starting to be there. I can, not feel as much as I want to. Feeling great as much as I want to. And as far as weight loss, I don't have a weight goal in mind. I just want to be healthier and be there in the long run. And awesome. That's why I'm doing this.
That's great.
I love that.
Love it. Next, we have Tom.
Tom loves being on the mic, by the way. That's one of his favorite things.
Hi, I'm Tom the Billy, and I'm going to do this challenge because I want to be around for my family. I have a 7-year-old son who I adore, and I just want to be healthy. I really don't have a weight goal. I just want to, not have to take any kind of blood pressure medications and things like that. And I'm going to really put my mind to it this time, and it's going to be different. I'm committed.
How much do you weigh right now, Tom?
About the same as Andrew, about 350.
Okay. Good. We're going to get it done. I'm proud of you, buddy. Yep. And now we have this. Kyle is all over the mic like he's an expert.
I've done this before.
He is.
Yes, I've done this before.
So, Kyle, tell us about you.
Okay, so I weigh about 230 right now, which is the most I've ever weighed. And so, I just, to go along with what they're saying, I have 2 kids, another one on the way. So it's been, I've noticed since my kids are more active now that it's tough for me to keep up with them. And so I want to be able to keep up with them, when they do all of this stuff.
Awesome.
To do all of this stuff, and I want to be a part of their future and a part of activities that they do.
Good. Well, we're going to get it done. Ballacor supporting us. We'll be coming here 3 times a week. I'm going to be training you personally. The first question is, are you willing to hug a tree? For an hour.
Just for an hour.
Well, for an hour.
That doesn't seem like that bad, but yeah.
Doesn't seem bad, but
as long as I have my laptop with me, I can do some work.
got my headphones in.
You've never been to camp, have you? It's bad.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we've been having a blast today. This is Réal Andrews with my co-host Deanna Miller, my guest Alex. We've been on Getting Real on your hometown station, KHTS 1220 AM. We'll be back with a wrap-up in a second. Hey, this is Réal Andrews with Getting Real, and you're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We've had an amazing show. I really want to thank our guest, Alex, my co-host, Deanna Miller. We've been talking about, are you coachable? We've been talking about defining a purpose. We've been talking about, how you coach your kids and some great tools. So, go back and listen to the show, get out your pen and journal, make some notes. And the best thing to do is take action. Don't just listen to something. If you heard something today that touched your heart, maybe it offended you a little bit, maybe it rubbed you wrong. Actually, that's what I always look for. If it's something that bothers me, then it's something I need to look at. But then, we've had some great, not only information, but some great tools and some great practices that you can do. Go home and practice and put them into work. I want to thank Deanna Miller because she's not only my co-host, she's actually my social media person. You want to tell us a little bit about your company, Start Social?
Well, first thing I want to do is anybody who's listening that wants to participate in the conversation after the show, go to facebook.com/Réal Andrews and leave us your comments and your questions that maybe we didn't get to today in the show, or you can follow him at Réal Andrews on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same handle, so make sure that you keep that conversation going. And if there's any topics you want us to cover next week we're going to be talking about integrity. So one of the things that we want is to make sure we keep the conversation going, so we're always getting real. And on a side note, I have co-founded a very awesome social media company, starksocial.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/starksocial, Social on Twitter and Instagram. If you have any questions about social media, talking to your kids, getting that conversation started, feel free to get in touch with me. I have opened myself up to the community in a lot of ways to answer questions and be helpful. So if you guys have any questions, don't worry. Just send them along. And next week, integrity. Integrity, that's a good one. I'm really excited about that one.
That's a great one. I'm glad you came up with that topic. I got to give credit where credit's due. But Alex, anybody looking for a transformation coach, how do they find you?
You can find me on the hometown station here, KHTS. Go to my bio. I also have a radio show every Friday, 1 p.m. called My Conscious Dad. Me and my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, really break down some distinctions about our relationship, how to create extraordinary relationships within your family, and we really just get honest, and we also get real like you do, and just really looking to figure out how to take responsibility, 100% accountability for our relationship, and figuring out how to communicate effectively from our heart and really get down to what really matters and what's really important, rather than all the surfacey stuff. At the end of my life, I want to know that I lived fully and I loved unconditionally, and on my deathbed I want to look around and just have a sea of people that I really touched, and then you can only do that when you're authentic and loving and compassionate.
That's good. That brings you to a point. Maybe we'll wrap it up with that. One of my favorite things is I had a girlfriend once, and I'd never been to a funeral. She asked me if I'd go with her 87-year-old grandfather passed away, and I figured it was time. I was in my 30s. I need to step up and face it. And I'd always been to a funeral, per se, on the TV. And there's always a lot of people there. Everybody's got a lot of great things to say, you know what I'm saying? And I was sitting there in this cemetery, me, her sister, the mother, the grandmother, and nobody else. And I remember going, that was a huge moment for me in my life, because I remember going, I don't want to go through my whole life and have nobody show up at my funeral. And not because I want a lot of people, just because I want to leave a legacy. That's right. I want to make a difference. That's right. I say to people, what do you want on your tombstone? Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week on Getting Real with Réal Andrews, Deanna Miller. You're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.